happy to talk to.
Beautiful,
about that.
beautiful. I won't touch anything else. I want us to spearhead this issue. All right, well, let's get started.
Okay.
Welcome to Thin Ice. This week, I've got with me Dr. Kafataris. Dr. Coon is a doctor practicing in occupational medicine. He has been also very active in the religious freedom debate, battling for religious minorities in this country. Now, this week, I really thought it was very interesting because last week we had Ricardo Bossi and Romeo Georges, and there were a number of different parties that they brought up that they really want to support. Now, Romeo Georges, as you know, he has 60,000 people that follow him on Facebook, and he's really vouched for Ricardo Bossi. Romeo also mentioned One Nation leader Mark Latham, who's doing some very good work in New South Wales and One Nation in Australia. This week, I really wanted to bring to your attention a very important matter and someone who I would consider an expert on the matter, which is religious freedom. Now, before I really get into this and I say hello to Dr. Coon, I wanted to start with this quote. It's from Pericles. Just because you do not take an interest in politics, it doesn't mean politics won't take an interest in you. Dr. Coon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Look forward to hopefully entertaining your legions of listeners.
Not yet. We're getting there. Now, Con, we did have a number of people that did watch the show last week. It was about 35,000 as it stands. I'm really interested in teaching these people, not from a position on high, but to tell them what's going on. That's why I got people who, last week I had Ricardo Bossi, someone who says he wants to represent the people, and I had Romeo Georges on my right, someone who has a number of people as seen with his following, and someone who he wants to hold politicians accountable to their promises. Now, Con, I wanted to get you in this week because it's not just about talking about ideas. It's about action. That's what we need.
Absolutely.
And correct me where I'm wrong, I really think that the Christian churches in this nation and a lot of the religious institutions of other faiths, they've been too silent.
Absolutely.
And we're going to get into this, but this long march through the institutions that we've been seeing, there's been little to no resistance for the last maybe 50 years, 100%. Which has been insane. 100%. So, Con, what's going on? I mean, we're seeing people lose their freedoms. We saw the massive legal battle that was happening with Israel Folau in the last few years. What's happened with the churches? What is going on?
Well, before I cover why it's happened, let's just sort of expand on what you just mentioned. I have here a book put together by the Human Rights Law Alliance. This is actually the older version. They're bringing out a newer one with more cases, and it's actually got hard cases of people who've been persecuted for their religious beliefs. Okay, so as opposed to, say, the Middle East, for example, where people of faith are persecuted by the sword, by warfare, here in Australia, we're persecuted by lawfare. All right?
What's that?
Lawfare, basically being dragged through courts and tribunals, putting you through the ringer legally. That's what's called lawfare. All right, so that in effect the process becomes the punishment.
Okay.
And because some of these things can drag on for 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, and people sometimes just give up. They say, okay, look, I'll do anything to settle, anything for a quiet life. And the activists then win. Okay, so we've got cases here of, there's Israel's case. There's Mark Alabi's in there, who was forced to resign from one company.
No, you're kidding.
Because he was on the board of a Christian organisation.
No, you're kidding.
Okay, and this was PwC that he was working for. All right, so he was forced to resign from PwC because he was on the board of this Christian nation. Stephen Chavura, a academic at Macquarie Uni, was forced.
A mutual friend.
Yes, there you go. So he's in the book.
You're kidding.
He's in the book. There's Israel.
Jeez. Yeah.
White Magazine was forced to close because it wouldn't take. It was a wedding magazine, and it wouldn't put in their magazine stuff about same-sex weddings. So they were forced to close. Another guy was targeted because he prayed for somebody at university, can you believe? Right? You've got medical practitioners here, taking issue with their posts on same-sex marriage. Bernard Gaynor, who you probably know all about.
Yeah,
He's
absolutely.
in here. Rabbi Shimon Cohen, this academic, he was dismissed from his position at Monash University during the same-sex marriage debate for using his university email to disseminate his opposition to the issue on the basis of his Orthodox Jewish beliefs.
That's insane.
So an Orthodox Jewish rabbi quotes from the Torah on same-sex marriage, and they kick him out.
Jesus.
All right?
Yeah. You'd think the rabbi would, they'd stop with the rabbi, but
no.
Everything's fair go.
Look at this, Ballarat Christian School. They're being sued by somebody, I won't mention her name, a former teacher, for discrimination because the school required her to teach Orthodox Christian sexuality and gender convictions. So in other words, a Christian school, not a public school. She goes and works there at a Christian school and gets upset because she's now forced to teach Orthodox Christian sexuality. All right? The school advised her that she was free to hold her own personal beliefs, but she would be required to support and teach in accordance with the beliefs of the school while she was working. Is that not unreasonable? I mean, you tell me. It's like they're saying you can believe what you want in your own time, but while you're teaching at our school, you have to abide by our ethics.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
It's like saying you can work for the Labor Party, okay, and while you're working for the Labor Party, you have to support Labor values. You can believe what you want in your own time, okay? But you can't say that I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Liberal supporter and work for the Labor Party.
Okay, but what about matters when it comes to funds going to institutions from the government? Should that be a basis of which they deny the funds to
No,
not at all. Okay.
And because if an organisation is getting government funding, it should be subject to the same criteria as any other organisation. Okay. The particular beliefs of the organisation should not be the reason for denying or approving government or denying government funding, unless those beliefs foster actions that would lead one to break Australian law.
Okay.
Something like that.
Existing laws on the books. Okay. Sure.
Okay. So just because you don't like a certain organisation's, ethos, if what they're doing and what they're promoting is in accordance with Australian standards, acknowledged best practice and Australian law, then that's what determines whether they get the funding, not whether they take an orthodox view on marriage or,
So it has real world ramifications, as we've seen with these people.
Yeah, there's a. I mean, he's not in here in this version, but he's in the next one. He's a doctor now in Victoria. He's had his registration suspended indefinitely. Okay, because he had the audacity to write an article, a medical perspective on transgender, and wrote it from an Orthodox Christian perspective. And he's commented on posts on social media, and he's been opposing same-sex marriage. Okay, and the medical board acknowledged that he'd never had any complaints of it. It's not like this guy raped a patient or prescribed the wrong drug. Okay, he wrote stuff that's basically in accordance with his Orthodox Christian beliefs. People have complained about it, and as a result of that, he now has had his registration suspended indefinitely.
Interesting. So it clearly has real world ramifications. We've seen these people that it's happened to. I mean, it sounds like, everyone's fair game. There's no one that's safe from this. Where did this come from? How have we been so blindsided from this? Well, is there an ideology backing it? Is it a movement? Is it being pushed by some religious group? What's going on for people that have no idea where this started? Okay,
well, I guess you can trace this back to before I let me give you an analogy, and I find this helpful for people to understand. Imagine you've got two teams playing a football game, right? Call them Team A and Team B. Right? One team is full of fit, strong, healthy players, right? And they're all very coordinated and skillful. Team A. Team B is full of weak, sickly players that particularly uncoordinated.
Yeah.
Right? So ordinarily speaking, who should win the game?
The one that knows the rules, really.
Well, the strong one or the weak one?
The strong one.
Strong one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more skilled.
That's right. But if the strong team don't show up, but the weak team show up every game, who wins?
Oh, the one that shows up at least.
Yes.
Okay.
And if the strong team don't bother to learn the rules,
Yeah.
and the weak team learn them backwards, who wins?
The one that actually know the rules.
That's right. So if you can imagine that politics is like the game,
Yeah.
okay, the end result of winning the game means you get to control the society.
Yes.
All right. What's happened is people of faith have progressively disengaged themselves from the political process, and they've progressively disengaged themselves from society at large. Okay, so effectively for example, if you look at and here, let me make a couple of qualifiers. I'm not saying that the people like the left or the people who've done the long march through the institutions are weak and sickly. I'm using them as an analogy. Right?
Okay.
I'm also not here promoting any one particular religion. But if you look at the Great Commission as commanded by Jesus in Matthew 28, he said, "Go, therefore, into all the world and make disciples of all nations, baptizing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." Right? That's been the basis of the evangelism of the church over the centuries. And everywhere that the Christian church has been and grown and flourished, it's been an evangelical type church. In other words, it's gone out into the society to change the society. Unfortunately, the church became a victim of its own success. Okay, so they became the dominant sect or the dominant religion in the Roman Empire in the early 300s under Constantine, and then obviously then we had the Middle Ages and the Reformation, etc. But the Christian church was basically the dominating force in spiritual matters. It also became very rich. I mean, churches now, including the Catholic Church, own a lot of land. They own a lot of assets. And unfortunately, that made the church inward focusing. They became comfortable where they were. So I believe, this is my beliefs, I believe that they stopped doing what got them so successful in the first place. It's like a music group, A lot of people say, I really like a band's old stuff, right? Before they become famous, right? They had that edge, right? And once they become famous and they look at just making commercial records, then many people say their musical quality deteriorates because they become comfortable and a bit lazy. Well, the same thing's happened with the church, and that's the reason why the two graphs you're going to bring up that show what's happened to this country. Okay, so
because there certainly is a silent majority. I mean, we talked about it last week, and I guess this is what this is about. It's about educating them on what's going on and how they can help. So everyone, keep in mind that in this video, it's not just another YouTube video that you watch. There is some action at the end.
Yes.
You will need to do something.
Yes.
So let's go back to that graph that you mentioned.
Okay, so here you see from 1966 to 2016, we had a dramatic drop in the percentage of the population identifying as Christians, right? Okay, and then 71 to 2016, you have a dramatic increase in the people identifying as having no religion. So you see the society at large disengaging from religion in general and Christianity in particular. Why is that? Well, because the church is disengaged from that evangelism, actually getting out there and showing people why religion is a good thing. Hypocrisy's has had part of it as well. The minister who talks about sexual purity then gets caught with in an affair, that's become a standing joke. Yeah. Okay, so many people now look at Christians as hypocrites. Yeah. And rightly so. Sure. Okay. And then at the same time as this has been happening, we've had laws in our country that have become progressively less friendly to the church. We had no-fault divorce in 1975. Then we had, over the next couple of decades, we had the decriminalisation of abortion in a number of states. We had same-sex marriage in 2017. Then we had, in 2018, we had Victoria legalising euthanasia. 17 to 18, we had exclusion zones around abortion clinics, which even stopped you from praying with people.
Interesting.
Or even praying for people.
Wow, in every state.
I don't know if it's every state, but certainly New South Wales and Victoria have them. But I think the other states, I stand to be corrected on that, but I think the other states have them too.
Yeah.
This right now, something that's been getting a lot of attention is the whole idea of teaching kids gender fluidity. We got now the Safe Schools program that's all through Victoria, and was almost coming to New South Wales. It's been defunded in New South Wales, but it's coming again in another guise that that Mark Latham is now talking about. And it's teaching kids this idea that your gender is fluid, that you decide whether you're male or female, not your biology, right? And it's being taught to kids. It has been taught in the past to kids in primary school, right? And at an impressionable age, right? So it's like many parents are becoming more and more concerned about this. Why are we teaching our kids gender fluidity instead of like what the capital of Peru is? And so
how to read and write,
and
stuff that's been plummeting, and the billions of dollars we've been spending
Well, you mentioned before the long march through the institutions, so I'm assuming your listeners are familiar with that, right?
Yeah, relatively, but I mean, I took on a lot of new viewers in the last episode. So if you wouldn't mind, I mean, I'm happy to introduce them.
Okay. Well, basically, what happened was there have been these two types of Marxism. You've got economic Marxism and cultural Marxism. Economic Marxism has been shown really to be it has been a failure. Okay, at least in the pure Marxism, because the Communist Party in China is not really purely Marxist as Karl Marx defined it, even though they call themselves Marxists and communists. So, but Russia was a failure, and most socialist states end up going belly up, right? But there's another type of Marxism called cultural Marxism, where a man named Antonio Gramsci, who was a 1930s Italian philosopher, identified there was another way you could take over a society. Rather than trying to invade it and take it over, using its military and its police, you could infiltrate the institutions, you could infiltrate the culture, and then you could change it over time. And it was a war of a position, okay? And it was... you actually took the society over by consent, really, because a little bit like boiling a frog, bit by bit, you change things, and before they know it, they're actually agreeing with you. Now, how did they do this? Well, there's one institution that they infiltrated, that the left and the Marxists infiltrated before all the others. That was the universities. Because think about it, doctors go to university, lawyers go to university, teachers who teach our kids go to university. Ministers go to university. They just call them seminaries, right? So most university lecturers now would be looked at as being left-wing. So is it any wonder that the graduates of those universities who are taught by those, and you pick up the values of people that teach you. It's not just a case of absorbing information. You actually absorb their values and their character. You get influenced by their values and their character as well. We all know the story of teachers that had impact on us and teachers that didn't have impact on us. And many times we remember teachers not so much by what they taught us in terms of the information, but what we caught from them in terms of their value and their character, their values and their character and their attitude, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So the left know this as well. Okay, so that's why the universities have been a key focus. Now we're in a position where the majority of young kids and millennials probably would embrace so-called progressive ideas and would see conservative values, religious values as being out of touch.
Okay, well, not to touch on any other topics, but is that kind of what we're seeing with people making the arguments based on how they feel rather than the facts? And you don't have to comment on this, but from what I've seen in recent months has been the Black Lives Matter protests, where the reality is more black people die, black people die that are unarmed than there are cops that are killed every year. I think the cops, it's in the hundreds, and with the black people it's like 19.
That's right. And if anyone wants, and you can put links to it, Chris Mitchell in The Australian today did a very good article on how the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement are Marxist, okay, and Lenin had this title, Useful Idiots, right, okay, and he talks about it, okay. Chris Mitchell talks about the fact that that well-meaning people are being used by this movement, okay, and they're not looking for the facts, right? So it was in today's Australia.
Interesting. I'll check it. I'll definitely check it out because that's what it is. People they do mean well.
They do mean well. Yeah, no. Absolutely. And interesting, you talk about how I feel. We're in this age. We had the sort of age of modernism. Yeah. Right. Now then, after that was postmodernism. Like okay, I get to define my truth. You know. Now we're in what's called post-truth. So the post-truth world, which is the 2000s and beyond, it's not about what's fact, it's how I feel about it. Okay? And this man, our mutual friend Stephen Chavura.
Yeah, okay? He's great.
I remember talking to him once, and he said to me, what he has to do with every new class he takes, he spends at least the first few weeks telling them he doesn't care how they feel. He says, I'm not going to grade you how you feel, because they get up and they say, I feel this, I feel that. And he's like, I don't care. I don't care how you feel, right? He said, I'm not going to grade you on how you feel. I want to know what you think. Yeah. And he says, every new class, he's got to do that. Yeah. Okay, because they're so indoctrinated by everything is, I feel this and I feel that. I mean, seriously, 20-somethings needing safe spaces and needing some kind of therapy after Trump got elected. Seriously?
Screaming on the street saying, he's not my president.
No. But I mean, these people that were saying were traumatized. Yeah. Because Hillary didn't win. I mean, okay, whether you like Trump or don't like him, he got elected, he won. Yeah. Deal with it. Yeah. All right. If you didn't want him to win, well then get busy on the 2020 election to kick him out. That's right. Don't just sit there and cry and go, oh, I'm so sad that he got elected. And, that's the problem. We've got everything is driven by feelings rather than facts. Yeah. And that's why my focus here is to bring facts back to the discussion, because someone was saying to me today in a chat room where I made some points about this. He says, "Oh well, people today are driven by emotions, and they don't respond to facts." And I said, "Maybe so, but whose fault is that?" I said, "People have been dumbed down, right? And we've allowed that to happen. And if I buy into that, right, then I'm only facilitating it." But here's the problem. That's not going to change the future. That's not going to stop that's not going to make the country a better country. It's only when we get back to some foundational truths and we accept that there are foundational truths. There is a right, there is a wrong, there is a productive way to do something, there is an unproductive way to do something. And we get back to the fact that these things need to be talked about at a bit more than just the soundbite level, right? And I refuse to believe that people of your generation, Joel, are so stupid that everything needs to be reduced to 140 characters.
Yeah, well, I don't think so.
No, exactly. Yeah. But if I just package everything to 140 characters, I'm not helping them, am I? No. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is bit by bit help people expand people's brains so they can start thinking beyond 140 characters and see that things are a bit more complex. Yeah. Right? So, to getting back to the original question, the church has abandoned its role to be salt and light, okay, and religious people have sort of become more inward-looking. That's left a vacuum. Yes. And then this idea that politics is not something that religious people should get involved in.
Yeah, okay. That's a good one.
Yeah. We should just focus on evangelism.
Yeah, and that takes us back to our first question, our first quote. Just because you don't take an interest in politics doesn't mean politics is interested in you.
That's right.
The Jews weren't interested in politics.
No,
but it was interested in them. In fact, it put them in camps.
That's right. But it's interesting if you read the Old Testament. Okay, it was the prophets in the Old Testament that actually stuck it to the kings.
Oh, is that right?
People like Isaiah and Elijah and all that. They were the ones that criticized the kings, so it wasn't necessarily always like that. And if you're a believer, you should be getting, and we believe that if we believe our faith is true, and we love our country, and we believe that we have truth, we should be telling that truth from the pulpit. We shouldn't be just, and I can when I use the term pulpit, you can read into that kibbutz, you can read into that from the mosque. It does, anyone who believes that they have the truth, they're negligent if they don't share that truth with other people.
Yeah.
Whether people choose to believe it or not is up to them. So to go to the next graph.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is another reason why we're in this position.
Oh, this is fascinating, I have to admit.
So if you have a look over here, you can't influence a political party without being a member. So
That's right.
in Australia, we have a two-party preferred system. So remember I talked about those two teams?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of them's going to win, the red team or the blue team. Okay, at this point. And let me explain something to your listeners or viewers, whatever the case may be. In Australia, we have this phenomenon of a safe seat, which means that there are certain seats that the Labor Party is always going to win no matter who sits. You could be, short of killing someone, you can be just like a cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
Right? And you win, and they'll win the seat because it's a safe Labor seat.
Yeah.
All right. Certain seats like Mitchell, for example, Borkham Hills, all right, the Liberal candidate won that by 30,000 votes. So you can be a cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
The Liberal guy's going to win it.
Yeah.
All right. So there are a number of those sorts of seats. Now, given that the representatives of those seats sit in Parliament and make decisions, so the politicians make decisions that affect all of us, those, whoever makes the decision of who sits in those safe seats is very influential, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so who makes those decisions as who gets to stand for those safe seats? Well, members of the same political party. So the Liberal Party members in Mitchell get to decide whether Alex Hawke is the sitting member. The Labor Party members in Fowler get to decide whether Chris Hayes becomes the sitting member at the next election.
Yep.
Right? So I can't, if I'm not a member of the Labor Party, I have no say in whether Chris Hayes is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, being members of political parties, the people who are members of the political parties effectively have the upper hand because they determine who's going to sit in those seats.
Yep.
Right? Let's have a look at how many people are members of political parties. The ALP don't officially, because it's not like America where they have to officially report their numbers, but it's roughly about 50 to 55,000.
Yeah.
All right. The Liberal Party, according to the website, say something about 80,000.
Okay.
So let's say maximum 150,000. And we've got 16.5 million registered voters. So less than 1% of the registered voters are members of political parties.
Jeez, that's insane.
All right.
Yeah.
And we talk about this myth that we live in a democracy where majority rule.
Yeah.
On those numbers, do the majority rule?
No, not at all.
Because 1% of the population makes decisions of who's going to run in particular seats.
I was in Eden Monaro a month or two ago in the by-election, and I ran to the Nationals candidate.
Yeah.
I had two questions from him. One was on religious freedom, Mark Latham's bill.
Yeah.
And the other one was on abortion.
Yeah.
Nationals voters, listen up now. If you're wondering how this happens, when I asked him how would you have voted on the abortion bills that we just saw, he said one phrase: I think it's a woman's right to choose.
That's it.
Now, if you're wondering how you got that, this is how you got that. It's the same reason why these things have gone so bad, as Dr. Con just mentioned with the churches. It's the abdication of responsibility.
That's right. See, you talked about Pericles. Well, let me give you a quote from another famous ancient Greek, Aristotle. Nature abhors a vacuum, right? So there's been a vacuum. The church has left a vacuum. Ordinary Australians have left a vacuum in political parties, right? So who has filled that vacuum? Well, conservative people or the left? Who do you think?
The left, absolutely.
The left have filled the vacuum.
Very well organised.
They're very well organised.
Yeah.
They filled the vacuum. The LGBT population of the country is roughly 2 to 3%. They're much better funded.
Yep.
They're much better organised. Okay. And I know this because I get the emails from the Equality Campaign, right? Because you've got to know who you're up with.
Absolutely, yeah. Know your enemy. That's it.
Well, they're not my enemy. They're my opposition.
But we also love our enemies. So yeah.
That's right. That's right. Jesus did tell us to love our enemies.
That's right.
Okay. But last year during the debate about the federal religious discrimination bill, I remember getting emails from them, and they were saying that we know the cafes that the MPs frequent in Canberra.
Yeah.
So we'll be there. We'll have people there, stopping them, asking them questions on this bill.
Yeah.
They're
good.
So they're good.
Yeah, very good.
they know where the MPs have lunch and they have dinner, and and so they're organised. 2 to 3% of the population are organised. Less than 1% in political parties. So now, do you see why the laws we have are walking away from conservative Judeo-Christian values?
Absolutely.
Because the people making the laws don't uphold conservative Judeo-Christian values.
Exactly.
And whose fault is that?
It's our leaders. It's our so-called leaders in the churches.
That's right. It's those who uphold Judeo-Christian values that have abdicated their responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay. I think every Australian should be actively involved in politics.
Yep.
Whether you're a member of a political party or not is up to you. I personally am not a member of either major party.
Yeah.
But as you know, we were very influential in the last federal election.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. We were very and so you don't have to necessarily and I'm working with both major parties and working with people who are inside both major parties.
Absolutely.
To work with to work on restoring, because here's what people need to understand.
Yep.
And you probably covered this in your other with your other speakers, but this country was founded on Judeo-Christian values. See, if you look at atheism and the logical progression, like in other words, the logical outcome of atheism, there should be no human right to exist.
Yeah.
Okay, because atheism assumes survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Evolution. And if I'm going to get ahead and propagate my gene pool by killing you, there should be nothing stopping me ethically killing you. It should be okay.
That's right, yeah.
And that's why under atheist regimes like Mao's China and Stalin's Russia, we hundreds of millions of people killed.
That's right.
Okay.
We don't even know how many.
We don't.
It's insane numbers, yeah.
We don't.
Wow.
Why is murder wrong? I can give you a fundamental philosophical reason why murder is wrong based on my beliefs. You know what it is? Because man is made in the image of God.
That's right.
That's the fundamental foundation stone of the of why human life is sacred.
Yeah, and from that we got rid of slavery. We
right.
gave women equal rights.
That's right.
We gave
because women are made in the image of God too.
People forget these things.
That's right.
It's phenomenal.
That's right. So
Wilberforce.
That's right. It was
William
religious
Wilberforce.
people that drove reform.
Exactly, and they were debating with other Christians using scripture.
That's right. And people forget, where was Wilberforce the most active? Inside Parliament.
That's right.
Inside Parliament.
Yeah.
And he was at it 20 years apparently.
Yeah.
Before his bill got passed.
Yeah.
So we don't have enough Wilberforces in Australia today.
We don't. But you know what? We've got to. This is what this is about. This is about educating people. You need to be. You know how Americans think about their politics? I'm not telling you to get violent, but I'm telling you need to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Because it will be interested in you.
That's right.
There's a great story, before we move on, there's this great new rule from Jordan Peterson's new book. No one knows it. I asked him personally. His rule, because he's writing a new book called 12 More Rules for Life.
Yeah.
And the rule goes something like this: where responsibility has been abdicated, opportunity lurks.
Absolutely.
Well, in the last few decades, the opportunity has all been seized up by these progressives.
Absolutely.
And look what's happened.
Yes.
So we've got to get our act together, people.
That's right. And look, if anyone wants references, I can give. I actually have the playbook because again, going back to the game analogy, remember I said. Because what's happened? Effectively, why are we in this position? Because we've gotten out of the game.
Yes.
Believers have gotten out of the game, all right? And both teams have been taken over by the left.
Yes.
So in the Liberal Party now, effectively about 60%.
Yeah, 60-40, is it?
Yeah, I would be left wing.
Interesting.
All right. Labor Party obviously a lot higher.
Yeah.
So I got hold of a book written by a neuroscientist and a marketing guy, right, talking about how they would change America's attitudes toward gays. It's called After the Ball. And they had a 6-point plan that talked about a propaganda campaign fed to the nation by the media, right? So they were very open about it. Portray gays as victims, not aggressive challengers, get corporates on side, make gays look good, make everyone else look like anyone who opposes it be bigots. And it was written in 1989.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and in that book, there's I think it's page 189 where they quote in there words to the effect that all you bull dykes and leather-clad mustachio leathermen stay away because we want gay people to look like just the people next door.
Yes.
Right. We must not be aggressive challengers. We must be quiet.
Yeah.
Saying things like we're here, we're queer, get used to it. We've got to stop doing that.
Yeah, not proud.
Yeah,
yeah. We have to be victims in a way.
That's right. Okay, we've got to, and then they even mention NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association. Okay, who want to lower the age of consent, etc.
Yeah.
And they say things like, "Oh well, it goes without saying that you guys have to stay away because the American people will not view suspected child abusers as victims."
Yeah.
All right. So that's all in their book.
Interesting.
So they've got it's out there.
Yeah.
The information's been out there for 3 decades.
Yeah.
All right. What's happened is they've taken it. They've taken the playbook and they've implemented it. And now we're a long way behind the 8 ball. Is it too late? No. All right. The analogy I use to explain to people where we are now, historically speaking, because you've used some historical analogies, is the World War II. Okay, same-sex marriage was like Dunkirk. It was a decisive defeat, no two ways about it. Okay, and it's sort of things are worse now than they were before same-sex marriage, but there's nothing we can do about it. All right. The battle for religious freedom is like the Battle of Britain. It's like the one we have to win. Because if we lose that, then we lose everything, right? If the Brits had lost the Battle of Britain, the course of the war would have changed, all right? And the entire course of modern history would have changed, okay? America may or may not have been so aggressive in getting involved if the Brits had folded, okay? A lot of things could have happened. Well, religious freedom is like the Battle of Britain because here's the thing. You only have freedom if you have freedom to act, right? But your actions come from your thoughts, and your thoughts come from your beliefs, correct?
Yes.
So if you're a person of faith, your beliefs come from your religion. So if you don't have freedom of religion, you don't have freedom of belief, you don't have freedom of thought, you don't have freedom of action.
It all goes back to that.
All goes back to that.
Interesting.
So if you don't have freedom of religion, you don't have freedom. And if you're an atheist, you should have freedom too. Okay? So ultimately, it's all about freedom of belief, freedom of worldview. And someone who disagrees with my worldview shouldn't be able to impose their worldview on me. Okay, we're sort of going around a bit, but I think this will help your viewers. I've had a couple of, and actually you were there. Do you remember when we met with the last year?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Yes.
Do you remember when I told him my definition of equality?
Yes.
And he's I use this specifically. I said to him, my definition of equality, I said to him, you're familiar with Leviticus 18:22, right? He said, yes. And I said that, it says, a man shall not lie with a man as with a woman. It is an abomination. Now, you can think that the scriptures are fairy tales. Yeah. You can think that that's all poppycock.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's what they say.
Yeah.
All right. So, this is how I've put it to a number of people, and no one's pushed back as yet. Same-sex marriage has been legalized. I don't agree with it, but I accept it. Fair enough? Well, I want the right to quote Leviticus 18:22. I want the right to say that according to this scripture, same-sex marriage is an abomination. Yeah. The scripture says that SSM is an abomination, and the gay couple has to accept my right to say it, or to quote my scriptures, even if they don't agree with it. That's true equality. Yes. Okay? But here's the thing, politically speaking, because it's not just my scriptures. It's a scripture for the Christian, it's a scripture for the Jew, and you know who else is the scripture for?
The Muslims.
The Muslims, absolutely. Because they revere the Torah. The Torah and the Injil.
That's right.
Okay?
And they're not going to take it lying down. They believe this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I've spoken with the imam about it, with a senior imam, and he says that homosexuality, according to the Quran, is an evil activity associated with an evil outcome. Like, I'm not sure if it's from the Quran or the Hadith, one of the two, but that he quoted. He said to me, and I quote, it's an evil activity associated with an evil outcome. All right. So he should be allowed to say that his scriptures say that. And let me emphasize, I'm not saying that I should be allowed to say that gay people are bad people, or I want gays to be thrown off buildings or anything like that. What I'm saying is I want the right to say that this is what my scripture says. Yeah. Just like Folau quoted 1 Corinthians 6, 9 and 10, he should have the right to say that. Yep. Because the Bible is not hate speech. Okay. And so if the Bible is the Bible and someone can quote from Shakespeare, I should be able to quote from the Bible.
Absolutely.
If you don't like what I quote, that's your problem. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. As long as I quote it correctly, and I don't take it out of context,
I always found it fascinating why people get offended when you say that you're going to hell. When I say you're going to hell, and I say it to an atheist, and they get offended. It's like, what's your problem?
Oh no! If you're an atheist, you don't believe in hell.
Exactly. It's just a killer.
I know. It's like people say and we can we'll get onto Mark Latham's bill, but Mark Latham's quoted, and I'll paraphrase him. Yeah. Because he was one of Israel Folau's biggest supporters.
Yeah. Good on him.
Good on him. Now,
get behind him, people.
Yeah, and Alan Jones was as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alan Jones is an atheist. Andrew Bolt was. I don't think Andrew Bolt's a Bible-bashing Christian either, right? And Mark Latham, his paraphrase, and again I'm paraphrasing, he said, "Well, I was on Folau's list of offenders a couple of times."
Yeah, he did say that a few times. Yeah.
He says, so he'll probably tell you. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, this sort of goes back to that book that you mentioned, the gameplay book, where they said in the 80s, 89, did you say?
Yes.
They said, don't do this, stay away. You groups, you're ugly, this and that. Correct me if I'm wrong, was that when the switch happened with gay marriage, where they said, because before, I don't know if that's the date, but before a certain point, they didn't care about gay marriage. It didn't mean anything to them until something clicked. And they were like, no, it does matter. We need to dominate this discussion. Yeah. We want that.
Well, it started to the first state that legalized same-sex marriage was Massachusetts, and I believe in 2003.
Okay, right? Interesting.
And through the 2003, I think it was 2003, because that's when John Howard changed the Marriage Act in Australia. Okay, because they saw that, and most of the cases haven't really been about, at least the early ones, they weren't really about, religious issues. They were about insurance and, financial reasons, like pensions and things like that. Because in America, if you're employed and a company pays a pension for you, or they pay your medical insurance, your spouse is covered. Yep. And same-sex couples were saying, well, I want my spouse covered because I'm a couple. And the insurance company was saying, well, no, you're not a couple because you're two blokes. Yeah. Right? And so that's sort of what drove it.
See, we all feel for that situation. Yeah. If you're a dude sleeping with a dude or a chick sleeping with a chick, go for it. Like, I understand you want those protections, but don't muck around with the religious institutions.
Yes. Well, here's the point. In Australia, we already fixed that problem. Oh, okay. So in 2010, the Gillard government changed something like 80 pieces of legislation to give same-sex couples the same rights as any de facto relationship. All right. Now, we don't call de facto relationship marriages. Okay, why not? Because they're not the same. Right?
There's a difference.
Yeah. Okay, so in the same way, we shouldn't call same-sex couples marriages. If you look at, and we digress a bit, but if you look at what marriage is, historically speaking, it's always been about one man with one woman to raise the children that come from that union. Because any society, simple demographics people, any society that survives has to have a steady supply of babies to replace the people that die.
Exactly.
Sad truth, Joel, is one day you're going to die.
That's right. Yeah,
so
that's right.
All right. And And there's a magic number of 2.1 live births per female per year.
That's right.
Okay, for a society to replenish itself. They worked this out back in 4,000 years ago.
Yep.
And so in Mesopotamia, the legal code of Hammurabi had roughly a third of it dealing with marriage and kids and what we would now call child support.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Wisdom. Wow.
That's right. Okay, because they worked out that children. See, here's the thing. Again, going back to demographics, the society that survives needs steady supply of babies to replace the people that die. Those babies need roughly 2 decades of care from both mother and father. So let me ask you a question. Which of your parents could you do without?
Oh, Dad, most likely.
Could you have done? Could you have done without Dad?
Look, this is the thing. I feel like that was a trick question. I'd say I could do without Mum, because I've seen the impact and the stats of the impact of fatherlessness.
But what would your life be without your mother?
Well, you wouldn't be born.
Right.
So that's why I thought, is it a trick question?
It is a trick question. Because you can't do without either of your parents.
Exactly.
Do you love both your parents?
Absolutely. I wouldn't want to pick.
Well, that's it. You wouldn't want to pick.
That's it, yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
And so the point is that children need both mother and father,
yes,
okay, to become responsible members of society. Right?
Yeah.
And marriage is the institution that keeps mother and father together.
Yes.
To make that happen. That's sanctioned. That's the only reason why we have marriage laws. Because the government doesn't care who you love. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I think
neither
would I.
Marry.
Exactly, yeah, marry. Yeah,
Why?
legally. Yeah.
Why does government only care who you marry? What comes from marriages?
It's the paperwork, it's the kids.
The kids.
Yeah.
And if marriages fail, who has to look after the kids? Governments. Very bad. They make very bad parents, and it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay, so put it another way, marriage. So babies come when men and women get together.
Yep.
Children, good citizens and taxpayers come when men and women stay together. And marriage is the institution that makes sure that happens.
That's right.
Okay, and marriage is built on 3 foundational principles: male and female, one male and one female, okay, and one male and one female for life. Right? That's Now we don't call de facto relationships marriages. They fulfill some of the criteria of marriage, but not all. Well, in the same way, I don't call same-sex couples marriages, because they fulfill some of the criteria of marriage, but not all.
Yes.
But de facto relationships and same-sex couples should have the same rights, but in Australia they do.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So what's the problem? What's the problem, Dr. Con? Why, if we've progressed so far, it's 2010, what's going on? Why are we talking about it 10 years later? Because
it wasn't really, it was about affirmation. It wasn't just about equality.
Okay.
It was about forcing, and this is my view, okay? Because, same-sex marriage was a big deal because it's created a conflict of rights now.
Okay.
So the government has now made something legal that the scripture says is an abomination.
Yes.
So now we have a big problem.
Yes.
Now, for the conspiracy theorists among you, okay, you could say, the conspirators might say, well, this is more evidence of the left wanting to silence the family and the church.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because now, with the legalization of same-sex marriage, we have a real problem. Yeah. Because they've been given a gun.
Yes.
You've got a conflict of rights, and whoever wins. The winner of a conflict is determined by who's got the bigger gun, right? So unless we get the legal right to proclaim what our scriptures say, more and more people are going to end up in this book.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the book will end up getting thicker and thicker and thicker.
Yeah, because that ties into the concept. And I've been listening. If you haven't realised, I've known Con for a while now, and Con has taught me the difference between positive rights and negative rights.
Yes.
And as it stands, when the Marriage Acts were passed, they were given a very big gun being a positive right. That's and right. In the legal battle, right now, we've only got a negative right, the religious freedom groups.
Well, right now, there really isn't in New South Wales, and this will segue into Mark Latham's bill.
Yeah.
In New South Wales, okay, it's actually, you could go into a restaurant wearing a dirty big woggy cross.
Yeah.
Okay, I can say that with my last name.
Exactly. Sorry, I didn't even introduce that.
Yeah.
You're Greek.
That's right. Yes, you really dirty big Greek cross, or a Coptic one. The one.
The big one.
The wrist. Or you could wear your
head covering of some
head
sort.
covering of I forget what the Muslims call it, or the yarmulke, the Jewish one. You could go into a restaurant, and they could refuse you service purely based on your religion, right? And there's nothing in New South Wales law that would protect you.
Interesting.
So in New South Wales, religion is not a protected attribute under anti-discrimination law.
Interesting.
Okay, so we have no gun.
That's a scary thought. And meanwhile, we've got these knuckleheads dictating to us, which make up less than 1% of the voting population. Right. That's very scary.
That's right. And in terms of schools, school's a good example. If you, let's say you were a conservative religious person, okay, you wanted your kids taught your values, okay, you know that the public school doesn't necessarily teach your values. So what might you do?
You'd maybe homeschool.
Homeschool. What else could you do?
He's got private school.
Private school, but any private school or a religious school?
Oh, religious preferably,
school.
Yeah.
Okay, you could send them to a religious school. Okay, a conservative religious school, right? But here's the thing: even under federal laws now, religious schools don't have a positive right to teach according to their values. They only have an exemption from anti-discrimination law. Now, the problem with an exemption is an exemption says that, well, you're actually discriminating, but we'll allow it under these set of circumstances. So in other words, it defines the behaviour as discrimination, but there's an exemption.
Interesting.
Whereas what we want is a positive right, which is an exception.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the good things about Latham's bill.
Yeah.
Latham's bill says that when a religious organisation is acting to further the values and teaching of its religion, it's not discrimination. You see the difference?
Yeah, absolutely.
One says that it is discrimination, but you're allowed to do it. This one says it's not discrimination.
Okay.
Right? Which was the better protection to have? This one, obviously.
Absolutely.
Okay? Because exemptions can be removed. And we actually saw a push to remove those exemptions that apply for schools in the Federal Sex Discrimination Act in 2018, the so-called Penny Wong Bill. Okay, that would have had far-reaching consequences.
Thank God it didn't.
That's right. But they're the only protections that religious schools have under federal law right now, those exemptions.
Yeah.
They don't have the positive right to practice according to their faith. Now, that's one of the good things about the Latham bill.
Yeah.
It's built on the right foundation. It distinguishes exemptions from exceptions.
Beautiful.
And it says that, and I've got here, quotes from the bill.
Beautiful. Which we'll get to for sure.
Yeah. So
before we keep going, we're going to take a very quick break. You guys like the button right now, the like button for this video. It really helps with the algorithms. Subscribe if you haven't already, and check out subscribe star at the bottom if you want to donate, and make sure you share the channel. But we'll be right back to talk about Mark Latham's bill. Welcome back to Conversations on Thin Ice. As I left off, we were just talking with Dr. Kafataris on religious freedom. Now we're going to get into things you can practically do, but firstly we wanted to give you some context about Mark Latham's religious discrimination bill in Parliament right now, in the New South Wales Parliament. Con, can you guide us through this process?
Okay, sure. Well, as I covered before our break, right now religion is not a protected attribute in New South Wales. Okay, we have, and to give people some context, the cases in this book are primarily cases occurring at state level for a specific reason. We have sort of two tiers of anti-discrimination law in Australia. We have federal anti-discrimination law, age, sex, disability and race, and we have state-based anti-discrimination laws across different states. Now, some states include religion in their list of protected attributes, but not all states. New South Wales and South Australia don't. Now, you might say, what's the big deal if why don't we just have a federal bill? All right. The problem is that the federal arena, if you're going to access one of those, like if you're going to say take somebody to court because of discrimination, and let's say you were discriminated against based on your race, and you wanted to access the federal protections, you have to go to the federal court.
Yep.
All right. You can go to the Human Rights Commission, okay, and then you have to go through the federal court. If you're going to access state-based protections, usually it's through a tribunal or something like that.
Okay.
All right. Now, I'll leave your listeners can probably work out that the state pathway is far less expensive.
Yes.
So most people usually go the state pathway. That's why it's no accident that all of these cases have been persecuted or have been prosecuted, okay, at the state level, the majority of them. The Folau one was, even though it didn't go to court, it was via the Fair Work Act, all right? Because in Australia, in New South Wales, religion is not a protected attribute. So he actually went through basically breaching his contract. And because under employment law, they've nationalised it under the Fair Work Act, right? That's why he went that way.
Okay, interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
But if somebody were to take exception to something I said tonight, for example, and you know, and I wanted to it's most likely that I would probably get a call from the New South Wales Medical Board. Right.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
Or if APRA were involved, it would be via there would be New South Wales apparatus and officials, or a tribunal or a committee, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's very important what protections you have at the state level, because that's really where the game is played most often.
Yeah.
We talked about the analogy again. Okay, the playing field is usually at the state level.
Interesting.
All right. Now, the Ruddock report, about 2 years ago, after the same-sex marriage law was introduced, many politicians warned that there would be consequences for religious freedom.
Yep. As
a matter of fact, they tried to pass amendments, okay, to protect religious freedom in 2017. All those amendments were defeated, basically. But then Prime Minister Turnbull says, okay, well, we'll have an expert committee to look at religious freedom. The so-called Ruddock Committee, chaired by Philip Ruddock. Interestingly, an elder statesman of the Liberal Party, former Federal Attorney General. Ruddock came out with 20 recommendations, right? And one of those recommendations was that New South Wales needed to fix up its anti-discrimination laws. Needed to bring religion, New South Wales and South Australia needed to bring religion into line with other protected attributes. So, do you think that the state Liberal Party did anything about it?
I think they may have sat on that report for a while.
The Federal Liberal Party sat on that for a while, but even after it was made public, in October 2018, the state Liberal Party did nothing about it. Okay, Labor Party did nothing about it. If religious freedom was an issue at the federal election last year, right? Still nothing was done about it.
Yeah.
All I can say is there was no bill that was prepared by Parliament or by an MP where we could make submissions on, okay, until Mark Latham's bill.
Okay.
Right? On religious freedom.
Sure.
Now, whether or not other MPs were thinking about raising those bills, I don't know. But what I do know is that Mark actually, because I was present at this meeting, Mark told a Middle Eastern bishop before the election, to the state election in March of last year, that one of the things he would be doing would be moving a private member's bill to implement Ruddock's recommendations. All right, and that was in March of 2019.
Yep.
He said, if I'm elected, that's what I'm going to do. And guess what? He got elected, and that's what he's doing.
Yep.
All right, so...
a man of his word.
He's a man of his word.
This is unusual in politics, isn't it?
Right.
Unfortunately. And he's a former Labor guy, Peter.
Yeah, but Mark has a track record of talking about religious freedom. As a matter of fact, the first time I heard him talk about it was in 2018.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Where he basically talked about because he understands the benefit that Judeo-Christian values have given to this country.
Yep.
And he's not a particularly religious person.
Yeah.
But he understands that religion is a good thing.
Yeah.
So
I think I've heard him say a few times that he teaches his kids the Christian morals, at least the 10 Commandments.
Yes.
Do not steal, do not murder.
And I believe that his children,
Yeah.
or his daughter, goes to a Christian school, I believe.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want them taught, he didn't want her taught safe schools.
Yeah.
That stuff. So his bill is before the New South Wales Upper House, and it's been referred to a standing committee of the upper house. All right. Now that bill that committee is going to receive public submissions on the bill, and it's then going to prepare a report that is then given to Parliament, and the recommendations of that report will determine what happens next to the bill. Now I'll talk before I talk about the contents of the bill and what I think of it. I'll just talk about sort of a bit more about the context. Because of COVID-19, it's highly unlikely, well, it's quite possible that the bill, even if the committee says that it should be debated, it may not get debated for the rest of the year. It may not get debated till next year.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know.
Okay.
The committee might say that the bill shouldn't be debated in Parliament. Okay. If nobody expresses any interest in it, they might say, oh, well, put it to the back of the line. Okay. Much depends on what the committee will recommend. But if the committee gets inundated by submissions from people saying they support the bill, it's more likely that they will push it to the front of the line.
Okay.
So the submission process now has the two ways you can make a submission. One is you want to make a formal 25-page legalese type submission. They give you an email address you can send it to. But interestingly, they've given us another facility now, a SurveyMonkey link, where you can put your name, your postcode, email address, and then you'll get to choose one of four options.
Okay.
Either support, support with amendments, oppose, or undecided. Then if you want to leave a reason for your position, you've got 700 words to write something. But you don't have to you can leave that blank.
Okay.
So what I'm telling people is that, we should be bombarding that survey facility with overwhelming messages of click support the bill.
Yeah, unconditionally.
No amendments, because if you say support with amendments, then that's a red flag to politicians to whittle away.
Exactly.
Like what they did with the abortion bill, last year.
Yes,
when
was disgusting.
It started off stronger, and then bit by bit they whittled away all the, it started off bad, and then what we did was we tried to put in lots of amendments to make it better, and those amendments bit by bit got voted down.
Yeah.
All right.
Insane.
So we want the bill to pass in its entirety without amendments. Okay, and the survey, I think, is the easiest way for your listeners and viewers to make that happen.
Absolutely. Guys, that's a SurveyMonkey. How many times have you used that? It's so easy.
Yeah, and
4 options. Don't have to write a word.
That's right.
Just put your details in.
And all you're doing, as you'll see when I go through the content of the bill, you're making something lawful now that is currently unlawful.
Yes.
Okay. You're not giving any special rights. You're not giving religious people special rights. You're just giving religious people equal rights.
Yes.
You're just basically giving people of any belief equal rights.
Yeah.
Because at the moment those rights don't exist. It's also so I'll just maybe look at why I think the bill is good. It's long overdue. We've waited till 2018 for this. Okay, and without these protections, this book is only going to get thicker and thicker and thicker with more people from New South Wales. All right. The bill has a good foundation. It's got the right definitions. It doesn't leave the definition of whether your beliefs are sincere open to a court, because that's a bad thing. Who was it? It's not good when a court has the right to say whether a belief is true or not, or whether it's religious or not. I can disagree with your beliefs, but they're your beliefs. It should be based on whether the beliefs are genuine. So it uses language like, as long as the belief is not malicious, capricious, or an artifice, okay, then it's sincere. It's a good bill because it gives widespread coverage. It doesn't just define religious activity based on what happens inside the place of worship. Because for many people, their faith impacts not just what they do on Sunday or Saturday or Friday, but on every other day.
Yes. Okay,
so it basically gives a wide-ranging definition for what is religious beliefs. It's also, as I said before, provides the right kind of protection. It protects religious organisations by exceptions rather than exemptions. What I like about it is it's balanced, because it says that, all right, a religious organisation is not discriminating when it acts in a certain way, but you, the religious organisation, you have to prove that this is your value.
Yeah.
So you actually have to put it on your website. You actually have to put it in the public domain that, for example, if you're a religious school, you're going to be teaching according to, the tenets of your religion. If you're a campsite, you're going to be running your camp according to the tenets of your religion.
Okay.
You can't just have nothing and then have somebody come along that whose values you disagree with and say, oh, sorry, we're going to refuse service to you because of our religion.
Yep.
You see, that's not fair.
Yep.
Okay? It's what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So the religious organisation's got to put up or shut up.
Yeah.
So they've got to say, all right, we believe in traditional marriage.
Yeah.
So as a bed and breakfast, I'm not going to allow same-sex couples to operate here. But I've got it all over my website. I'm also not going to allow other types of, family arrangements that conflict with my religion. So you can't really allow de facto, if you're going to talk about traditional marriage. So you're getting back to why people have turned away from faith. The church, they made this big deal about same-sex couples and same-sex marriage, but yet they look the other way when people sleep together before marriage.
Yeah.
Now, if that's your belief, if that's your values, I'm not condemning you for it. I personally disagree with it because I like to live my life according to my scriptures.
Yeah.
And my scripture, the Christian Bible, Jesus in Matthew 19 gave people two options for sex: heterosexual marriage or celibacy. Right? They're the options that Orthodox Christianity gives you. Having sex outside of marriage is not allowed in the Bible. Right? You want to do it, that's fine. Okay, but you then can't call yourself an Orthodox Christian living according to the Christian values. Now, unfortunately, too many churches have looked the other way there.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't, I say to schools, for example, sorry, I shouldn't say, a religious school who wants these values, I say you better not be allowing your teachers who are living together to work there.
Yeah.
And then refusing a same-sex couple to work there. You see,
checkmate.
You see the hypocrisy?
Yeah.
They're not biblically living together, but you allow them to work there. You see, so I don't support that kind of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
So I don't want anyone to think I'm equal opportunity hardcore on both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
For sure. And we should live to the values that we espouse.
Yeah, we shouldn't be hypocritical.
Exactly.
Okay. And so it proclaims the right to. It's also sort of standalone. It's not the kind of bill where you're going to have to go and amend other pieces of legislation. It's sort of, as it says here, it's self-contained. All you're really going to have to do is insert one particular clause or one particular section into the Anti-Discrimination Act, because it's just providing a protection that's currently not already there that should be there.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're going to affect other laws. It's not like you're going to affect, protecting religion as a protected attribute is not going to change whether it's illegal to discriminate against someone based on their race or their sex.
Yeah.
Okay, you see?
Yeah.
So another good thing about it is that it talks about protection for statements of belief. In the bill, it actually mentions examples, doesn't use the names of these people, but examples like Israel Folau and Felix Nagoli, the guy in the UK who was, kicked out of his degree because he didn't support homosexuality. So it uses examples and I'll read you an example. Okay, this is from the explanatory notes, statements of belief. It says an employee is demoted for expressing her religious beliefs on social media that faith-based aged care providers should not be forced to participate in voluntary euthanasia. The expression of a view does not include any direct criticism or attack on, or does not cause any direct and material financial detriment to her employer. So if the employer sacks her, the employer has breached Section 22N. All right. Another example. An airline has created a new staff policy celebrating same-sex marriage. All right, requiring its on-flight stewards to wear a commitment ring in support of the policy, while also banning Christian crosses in staff jewellery, given the Christian commitment to male-female marriage. The requirement to wear a commitment ring breaches Section 22N of the bill. Okay, so The bill also protects students, the Felix situation. It says here, gives an example. On his Facebook page, a university social work student declares his support for traditional Christian views on marriage between a man and a woman. This causes controversy on campus, but initially university management stays out of it. The student declares publicly that while he is a committed Christian, as a future social worker, he will readily look after people of all religions, sexuality and marriage type. But this is not good enough for the National Social Worker Accreditation Body, which says that the student will not be admitted to the profession when he graduates. The university buckles under this edict and suspends the student from this course. The accreditation body has breached Section 22S of the bill. You see, so what the explanatory notes, every bill has an explanatory note or an explanatory memorandum that explains how the bill operates.
Yeah.
So what it's saying in the EM is that these people would be breaching the bill if they did this.
Interesting.
You see? So you can see, and in the bill...
It's very clear. Wow.
It is very clear.
I like this. I like this very much.
And in the bill, it actually says that things like secondary boycotts and withdrawal of sponsorship is not... See, it says that... Sorry, let me backtrack. What it says is that that a statement of belief, you can't be punished unless you make a... it's here. It says it's a protected activity when the religious activity performed by the employee that occurs at a time other than when the employee is performing work at a place other than the employer's place of work. So outside, of work, and does not include any direct criticism of or attack, or does not cause any direct and material financial detriment to the employer. Right. And then it says, so in other words, as long as what you're doing doesn't directly criticize your employer, okay, your beliefs are your beliefs. Then it goes on to say that for the avoidance of doubt, so this is from the bill itself, for the avoidance of doubt, the following do not constitute direct and material financial detriment to the employer for the purposes of subsection 4A and 4B. A, any boycott or secondary boycott of the employer by other persons because of the employee's protected activity or the protected activity of their associate. In other words, if your wife posts something, and your employer gets a nose out of joint. And B, the withdrawal of sponsorship or other financial or corporate support for the employer because of the employee's protected activity or the protected activity of their associate. So that covers the Folau situation. Yeah. You see?
Interesting.
So this bill would have protected Folau because Qantas could not have sacked him. No, Rugby Australia could not have sacked him even if it was proven that Qantas would have threatened to withdraw sponsorship. Now, that's what they say. I haven't seen the emails, but let's say it was true. Yeah. The bill would have protected him.
That's exactly what we want.
That's exactly what we want.
Isn't Mark great?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And, it also protects the university student. It protects the right to conscientious objection. Yes. So basically, if an employer can find somebody else to do a certain job that, let's say you just, I'm not going to, the example they use is a printing press wants to print material for Satanists. Yeah. The Christian worker says, look, I don't want to participate in this. I'll do something else. Yeah. Okay, I'll do overtime on this, but I don't want to do this. Okay. And the employer says, no, you have to. That's not, this bill would protect the worker. Okay. The employer would have breached it would have discriminated against them based on religious grounds because somebody else could have done the bill. Yes. Could have done the activity. It also talks about religious symbols. Okay. An employer with customer service that allows a Muslim woman, for example, to wear a headscarf, and then a woman says, no, I want to wear the burqa or the full face covering, and the employer says, no, you can't do that. Well, the employer is protected, okay? Because if you're in customer service, your customers need to see your face. Yeah. Right? That makes sense. So that's why it's got good balance. Yeah. So it allows it preserves the Muslim woman's right to wear the hijab. Fine. Okay? That's good. But it preserves the employer's requirement for customers to feel that they know who they're dealing with.
See, that right there is very well thought out. Mark, cheers to you. Well done. Because how many times they're very ambiguous. Yeah. Parliament is very ambiguous quite often, and they say, all right, good luck everyone else working it out, and the courts, good luck working it out.
And one of the reasons why it is well thought out, because, and again, kudos to Mark. Mark's a smart man.
Absolutely.
But Mark didn't work this out. Mark worked out a lot of the concepts, but Mark's tapped into, I won't mention their names, but there are very smart people in religious organisations who are lawyers, okay? And, the Catholics have lawyers that work for them. The Anglicans have lawyers that work for them. Mark's tapped their brains, okay? And Mark's asked, okay, how can we word this so that it gives us the best balance?
Yes.
You see, so
beautiful.
I think that's what I think.
And I mean, it sounds like he's definitely consulted all of the different, religious groups on this.
Yes.
I mean, just so everyone knows this, because this is a bit of it may have been an assumption on my part. I want to make it very, very clear. Dr. Con, Mark, they've been engaging with people from every denomination, from every religion. And when I say every, I mean every. Yes. I mean Scientologists of all things. I mean both denominations of Islam.
Yes.
That's unheard of.
Yes.
Getting Muslims in the same room as Jews. It doesn't happen.
Well,
it just doesn't happen. Kudos to you guys. Well done. This is excellent. Yeah. I haven't seen this kind of cooperation anywhere in the world. It's really good.
Thank you. And before we finish, I do want to talk about the ARA.
Absolutely.
A plug, but I'll just finish the bill here.
Yeah, sure.
It talks about it's illegal for anyone to refuse to rent premises to someone only based on their religion. It talks about R refuses to rent a flat to C because C is a member of the Sikh religion and R doesn't like Sikh people. That's illegal.
Yeah.
All right. It talks about conduct that is in the furtherance of religions protected by exceptions, and as I said before, with the example of the religious school, right? If I want to send my kids to a religious school, and they're forced to employ, let's say I don't agree with same-sex marriage.
Yep.
I don't want my kids taught by teachers who are openly gay,
yep.
okay, or openly in a same-sex relationship. If they want to go and work at a school and keep their sexuality to themselves and teach the school's ethics, that's up to the school. I don't philosophically have an issue with that.
Yeah.
All right. I'd rather not, but if they were just going to keep quiet about it, at school, then that's up to the school, right? But I'm talking about the teacher that's openly homosexual, openly in a same-sex marriage, and I don't want my kids taught by them because I knew about when you went to school, I knew about my teachers, not their personal lives, but I knew if they were married, I knew that, if they had kids, my teachers would talk about their husbands or their wives, what they did, okay? The teacher is a mentor, a teacher is a role model, right? So I want my kids mentored by people that have my values.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
Anyone that thinks that the teachers are just there to convey information is wrong, absolutely wrong. Okay?
Yeah.
And the left know this, which is why the left have been trying to indoctrinate teachers.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So, if the school doesn't have the protection or is forced to employ teachers that don't uphold the religious values of that school, sooner or later, what happens to the school? It ceases to be a religious school, correct?
Yes.
Everything's watered down.
That's right.
What's the point of having religious schools then?
There's no point.
No point.
It's just like anything else. May as well get rid of all public and private. You may as well get rid of everything. There should be one type of school.
That's right.
Public funded schools.
That's right. And why would I spend 10, 15, 20 grand a year? I mean, your parents paid for you to go to King's. They paid good money to go there. They paid there because of the values of the school.
That's right.
If those values, if the school was then forced to teach stuff that was in conflict with your parents' values, why would they pay the money?
Exactly.
You see?
Exactly.
So,
and it's absolutely imperative because it's not just about conveying information, as you said. It's about number of different skills.
That's right. And so the bill says that a school that or a religious organisation that preferences employees in accordance with their values is not discriminating. So that's good.
Yeah.
But again, as I said before, the school's got to put stuff on website or stuff into the public domain. So the school has the burden of proof in conveying that it's a religious institution. It says here, also religious organisations cannot be discriminated against in provision of goods and services. Right.
Interesting.
So you can't have a provider refusing to rent a hall to a religious group simply because they don't like that religious group.
Yeah.
So there's protection there.
Okay. How does that protect, for example, Christian not Christian camps, religious camps that don't want other religions using those camps?
It's very simple. You put all over your public stuff in your policies that you run your organisation in accordance with your values.
Okay.
And your values are that people are made in the image of God, male and female, and that you support a biblical view. Or you could just say, we support a biblical view of marriage and sexuality.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
But if you don't do that, it's like, for example, if you're renting to any religious group, okay, let's say you're renting your hall to a group of Buddhists, okay, who don't particularly say anything against homosexuality. And then a hardcore fundamentalist, and I'll use the word fundamentalist in caricature, wants to rent the hall for their own church services.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and you refuse the hall to them because you don't like the fact that they oppose homosexuality or other things, or they, oppose living together before marriage or any of that stuff. You are discriminating against them. All right. If you're going to rent the hall to one religious group, you've got to be willing to rent the hall to all religious groups.
Exactly, yeah.
Unless you say on your site that you only rent your hall to followers of your religion. And you're a religious organisation and, you go and get the relevant status, etc. You can't have it both ways. Okay, so that's one of the things I like about the bill. It's balanced. There's really very little downside in the bill.
Yeah.
And this is where Mark was smart because, he's a smart politician because, he recognised that Ruddock said, New South Wales need to fix their anti-discrimination laws. So all he's done, he's plugged a hole. He hasn't tried to be too ambitious. Right? And he's used the expert committee. So there's no downside. So if anyone criticises him...
He falls back onto it.
He's like, they're the ones that said, your own experts.
Yeah.
The Liberal Party, your own experts told me, that you guys didn't do it, so I've decided to do it.
I love that. So this bill, how can we help Mark? Pretty much because you've mentioned the monkey survey. How important is that to helping him? Does it do anything?
The monkey survey, the survey.
The monkey survey.
The monkey survey. No, look,
I'll have the link in the description, guys.
Yeah. No. Look. Let me be frank. We know that the majority of the parliamentary parties are controlled by the left.
Yes.
Do you think they want this bill?
Oh no.
No, they don't.
Oh no.
No. There are elements that want to kick this bill off into the long grass. Okay. They'll use all sorts of excuses. They'll say things like, okay, we've got to wait for the federal bill. That's garbage because we've waited long enough. And this bill doesn't interact with federal law. It's only it talks about what happens in New South Wales. Also, the federal bill is on hold anyway.
Yes.
Because the federal government couldn't get it right. Now we've got COVID-19.
It's the plague year.
Yeah, it's a plague year. And Morrison's pretty much admitted that this hasn't been talked about in cabinet for some time.
Yes.
And it probably my own view is it's going to be buried. It won't see the light of day this term of Parliament.
Yep.
All right. So the federal bill, and if the federal election won't be, will be at the very earliest second half of 21 and latest, April 22. New South Wales has waited long enough.
Yeah.
Right. So they'll want to kick. So there's no excuse using the other reason why the federal bill is it's a furphy is that the federal bill by definition doesn't override any state laws. So New South Wales can do what it wants with respect to religious discrimination, and anything in the federal bill doesn't override the New South Wales law.
Yeah.
So we don't have to wait for the federal bill to implement our own state laws. Okay.
There you go. Hear that? What are you waiting for?
Yeah. But the left of the parties, they want to kick it off in the long grass.
Yeah.
Mark's in the upper house, okay, and so therefore he can't really submit a private member's bill in the lower house for it to be debated.
Yeah.
All right. Like Alex Greenwich did that, but he's in the lower house. I think the electorate of Sydney, right, an independent. So what we need to do is we need to make as much noise as possible. Basically, we need to send a message to both majors that they ignore religious freedom at their peril. Okay,
that's right. I mean, we're in the western suburbs. It's a very strongly ethnic.
100%.
All of these religious groups were out here, Maronites, Muslims.
That's right. So all those people for whom faith is important need to bombard that survey.
That's right.
10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000.
Yeah.
Okay, 100,000.
Yeah,
So that the Liberal and the Labor Party realise they're playing with fire.
that's right.
Because for Mark, it's a win-win. See, think about this. If he doesn't, if they ignore this bill, in 2023, the election, he's going to be able to say, I was the one that was standing up for your rights.
Exactly. He owned it.
He owned it.
That's
no
right.
one else did. By then, this book will get thicker, and he'll probably be holding up copies of this book. And if I were him, I'd be holding up copies of this book and the thicker one.
Yeah.
Right? Saying the before and the after. Right?
That's a good one.
You know?
Yeah.
And Mark, if you're watching, feel free to take the idea.
Take notes, Mark.
Take notes, Mark. The before and the after, and highlight that my bill could have stopped this.
Yeah.
You see, in New South
Absolutely.
Wales. And so,
But and if it goes through, it goes through.
you know, and so.
But the fact of the matter is, and sorry to cut you off, every survey you do is another bullet in Mark's gun
That's
that he
right.
can use against
That's
them.
right. He can get up and he can say that look, okay. Picture this: two alternatives. Mark could get up and say, "Well, I had a really good bill, and it was really well thought out, and all my mates said it was really good, but we had 100 replies to our survey. So, can we please have some religious freedom or protection for the people of New South Wales?" Or that's scenario A. Or scenario B, Mark could get up and say, we consulted widely with our bill. It's a really good bill. It was really well thought out. My mates thought it was a great bill. And we've had 50,000 endorsements, 100,000 endorsements from the people of New South Wales. This parliament needs to fix the problem.
Yes.
Okay? Which would you prefer? Scenario A or scenario B?
Yeah.
Okay? So Mark can only work with what we give him.
Yes.
All right. It's funny, you know, people of faith or people, you know, for whom freedom of speech, because at the end of the day, it becomes a freedom of speech issue. At the end of the day, like that's why those, you know, those protections in there for the Israel Folau clause and the Felix clause, they're not just freedom of religion issues; they're freedom of speech issues. You understand? That's why Jordan Peterson's been hated by the left, because he won't be bought or he won't be browbeaten as to what he can say. So, if freedom of speech is important to you, and we've gone to the trouble of electing an MP like Mark who will defend freedom of speech, but we don't give him enough ammunition, if we don't arm him, whose fault? It's not his fault.
Yep. And you know what? It goes back
Yes.
to where is the church leadership?
That's right. Exactly.
Why did things get so bad, guys? Now's the time. Let's do it.
That's right.
So the due date for this is this Friday.
No, 21st of August.
The 21st of August.
Yes,
so
21st of August.
So that's when that's when that survey monkey will end.
That's right. This Friday is another inquiry into the gender fluidity in schools. So Mark's got two inquiries running at the same time. So people should respond to that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But the religious discrimination bill is far more well. They're both important, but they need to respond to the Survey Monkey one, and they need to get all their friends to respond to that Survey Monkey.
Absolutely. And you know what, guys? We've got sorry to cut you off.
No.
There are so many people that will do this on their own. That's not enough, guys. You need to bug your MPs. You need to bug your church leaders and say, why aren't you sending this out? What's your problem with the bill? Why is it the Muslims are fighting harder than we are for our own religious freedom? You need to get active. Last week was great. You know, we had some phenomenal conversations and we reached 35,000 people with it. This is the time for action.
Yes.
This is the time for not just talk, and that's what this channel's about. It's about action as well.
So to go back to the historical analogy, the Battle of Britain, it brought them. See, the war didn't finish in 1940. It finished in 1945.
That's right.
But 1940 bought everybody time for a counter-offensive, and to so it's a little bit like when the tidal wave comes or the flood comes. This bill, Mark's bill, is like the sandbags.
Yes.
Okay, that stops our homes being destroyed.
Yes.
So we can start to rebuild and start to work on the reasons why the flood came in the first place. You mentioned, my Muslim colleagues, and look, you know, I've got very great relations with all, you know, Shia and Sunni. And last year I was sitting with a Shia imam.
Okay.
Okay, and he asked me, he brought up this stuff, the census data.
Yes.
Okay. He said to me, it's happening in our community too. And what's not on those graphs is the percentage of people that tick no religion in the census that are 18 to 39 is 39%. Right. So young people are walking away from religion in droves.
Yes.
Okay. So he said to me, so how do we stop that? And then he looked at me and he said, I think I know what you're going to say. Because I'd spent about 20 minutes talking to him about the importance of religious freedom and religious freedom laws. He said, I think you know what you're going to say. And I said, what do you think I'm going to say, Sheikh? And he said, you're going to say that we need to fight to get these protections for religious freedom, and then we need to use those protections to go out there and evangelize the country and win back the lost. I said, that's exactly what I was going to say. You see, so, it's like, for those Christians out there, if you believe in the gospel and you believe that Christ came to die for our sins, okay, if you don't do anything with that, then it was pointless.
That's right.
Okay. Now, Mark can fight for all the laws that he wants, and we can fight for all these laws, and we could even get this law passed, right? But if the church does nothing with it to try and reverse this trend, it's pointless as well.
Yeah.
So it's just the beginning. Mark's law is just the beginning. I want to go back to the 1940. Mark's law is 1940, but then we got 5 years at least of turning things around to try and retake ground that the left has taken. Okay, so D-Day wasn't until 1944. All right, the war didn't end until 1945.
That's right.
Okay, but the pivotal moment was 1940. So this is our sort of battle of Britain, so to speak.
Yes, we need to secure our sword. And, us Christians know that as the gospel. Well, you can't use the gospel if the gospel gets cancelled, like we've seen Cocoa Pops in the last month. Yeah. Or, like the most
Coon.
obscure things.
Coon. Did you hear about Coon?
You know what, Dr. Con? This is the first time I'm saying this on camera. I said a month before Coon cheese got banned. Yeah. This was my Facebook post. I said, I'm so sick of all these things getting banned, I'm going to go have some Coon cheese. And ... A month later, they're like, oh, Joel's post. We should ban Coon cheese. That's an excellent idea, Joel. I'm sorry, guys at Coon. I'm sorry I gave them the idea. You should now name it something else, I guess.
Yeah, but isn't that stupid?
It's so stupid.
And for the can you enlighten for the people listeners who don't know, the name doesn't refer to an African American, does it?
No.
Where did the name come from?
It's named after a very famous Australian.
Exactly. Mr. Coon.
It's like...
He invented a pasteurization process.
Find me the Aboriginal or the black person, crying in the corner because of the name of Coon cheese.
I know.
They don't exist.
I know.
And if you are, harden the F up. Like, I'm not even kidding. Yeah. Snowflakes.
Yes.
It's just one word, snowflakes. That's what it is. When the last podcast, I started... with Ricardo as the Italian, and I started with Romeo as the Lebanese, and I'm Lebanese Syrian myself. And I said, there's many ways I thought we could start this podcast, but I thought we'd notice that we're all WOGS here. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kong, because you're also Greek. When WOGS came to Australia, we weren't treated particularly nice.
No.
In fact, we were given, I don't know if this is true for you, but my, uncles, they'd tell me stories about having to, get respect, and they'd always be fighting at the local train station with the Aussies and this and that. Are we crying about that now?
No.
Or did we get on with it?
No. And I think that, we don't want to get too far off topic, but, my parents had to learn the language. They weren't given everything to them on a platter. There weren't interpreters everywhere, and they had to learn the language, and they had to learn Australian values, and we're better for it.
Absolutely. I'm very thankful every day.
And I got called WOGS at school, but you know what? I just would, okay, you Skippy or whatever. I was like
throw it back
at him. I mean, because you here's the thing. We're trying to take away, we're trying to change fundamental human nature. That is, the bottom line is, I hate to break it to you, Joel, but some people in this world are not going to like you. And some people in this world are going to call you names.
Really?
And you just have to learn to deal with that.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit.
You know, and you know, the snowflake generation has to learn to deal with the fact that things aren't always going to turn out how they feel.
That's right.
They're going to get disappointed. They're going to feel bad.
Yeah.
They need to learn to deal with that, get themselves up off the mat, and fight again.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
or
right.
they're going to end up being a bunch of weak-kneed, lily-livered cowards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And God help us if we have to go to war.
Oh yeah.
You know, with you know, people like that fighting our battles for us.
There's this great joke, sorry to cut you off, about when World War III starts, the third wave feminists are going to be offering all the men sandwiches because they don't want to go to war.
Yeah. So, but you know, one thing about this battle for religious freedom, also the military analogy. Churchill was smart. He gave everybody a job. Like in you know, there was people could dig for victory by planting vegetables they could knit for victory, making socks.
Yeah.
Everybody could do something.
Absolutely.
So everybody in this fight can do something. Not everybody has to do what you and I are doing, but everybody can fill in that survey. Okay, and everybody can contact their MP and say, "Listen, I want you to support Mark's bill." Because one thing, the other thing people can do besides the survey, those of us who want to be a bit more active, is contact your MP. You've got the right to talk to them. They're legally required to see you.
That's right.
Okay. Tell them you want to that you want Mark's bill to be passed, and surprise, surprise. Okay, I'm gonna say something really revolutionary here. I'm sure your listeners have never heard of this before. Okay, you know what you could do? Instead of hiding behind your keyboard, you could pick up the phone.
Oh no, you're asking too much.
Even better.
Yeah.
Okay, even better. You could actually make an appointment to go and see him and talk to him face to face, eyeball to eyeball.
Write it down.
You know, right there, eyeball to eyeball. Do you know it's a lot harder for an MP to say no to you face to face? It's a lot harder for all of us to say no to somebody sitting in front of you. I mean,
absolutely.
You have somebody talking to you over a keyboard. We're all keyboard warriors, you know.
Very
you have
brave.
the person in front of you.
That's right.
Entirely different story.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and that's why I love talking at Eden Monaro to the Nationals. You know, what do you feel about this? It took him 2 minutes, guys, to come to that conclusion and say, I think it's the woman's right. What did he fill up the first 2 minutes with? Blah 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 blah. You know, I don't know what I think. You're a candidate. You're the best the Nationals put forward. You should know what you stand for, and you should be able to say it confidently. And that's what he came up with.
Yes, and because you put him on the spot, and so you should.
Yeah, absolutely.
So besides the survey and bombarding that, bombard your local MPs.
Yep.
Okay, your Liberal or Labor, and tell them you want the bill passed. Because I can tell you something. The Equality Campaign and those who are opposed to the bill will be doing precisely that. They will be that as we speak. They're organising. I would not be surprised if they're organising a campaign to bombard that survey monkey.
Yes.
With people saying oppose the bill.
And that's the thing. We know we can oppose it. We're slow to rev up the battle and rev up the machine, but once we get going, we get going. Yeah. Look at what happened with the abortion stuff. We got there.
That's right.
We're filling streets.
But here's the thing. Okay. Why does 2% of the population win?
Well, they're well organised and they know the rules back to front.
And they play the game. Okay, so if we don't get in the game, you know, I'm sorry, but you've only got yourselves to blame. Don't come crying to me in 10, 20 years' time when the world, when the country's got even worse than it is now.
That's right.
You know, and you say, oh, but I can't do this and I can't do that, and I've got
a family.
You know, I've got a family now. You know, don't come crying to me. What did you do when you had the chance?
Exactly.
You know. What are you going to tell your kids?
Oh, I hate that.
You know, so my kids know all about what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
And so I tell them, and one of my sons, because I've got 3 sons, the youngest, he'll probably watching this because he watched the Carnage House interview I've done. And
good on him.
You know,
good on him.
He searches for the stuff I do. You know?
That's great.
You know, and because I want him to understand why I'm standing for their future.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Because it's a big risk.
It is.
It's a massive risk.
Oh, look.
And it's for your and to your family as well.
Look, you know, someone might take offence at something I say, and you know, but I made that decision a while ago that I'm not going to back down.
Absolutely.
As long as I say whatever I can say can be backed up by evidence, good sense, and the scriptures, then that's fine. If I say something, and I'll be stand by it now, if I say something where I need to be corrected, if I'm wrong, I will retract that.
Absolutely.
Okay? If I'm shown where I'm wrong, I will retract it.
Yes.
Generally speaking, I'm pretty careful with what I say, as you probably worked out.
And I think people can hear the caution in your voice when you
Yeah.
talk on it. Yeah, absolutely.
Before we finish, I want to talk about the ARA because I think this is something your listeners need to know about.
Oh, please do, because it's one of the most fascinating things, as I said before. You guys watch this space.
Well, bit of context where it came from, because it's actually a really good story.
Oh.
We had a rally before, because I'm all about what can we do, and it's like, okay, there's a big guy in front of me and I'm a little guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and punch him.
Yeah.
I'll punch him in the nose. And if I get squashed, I'll get squashed. But I'm just not going to stand there and take it, right?
You are a WOG.
Yeah. So we thought, what can we do, to bring religious freedom to the fore before the election last year?
Yeah.
All right. So we started having these public rallies. Mark spoke at one.
Yes.
Then we had one in Mount Druitt where Ricardo spoke actually.
Yeah, he did too. Yeah.
Okay. And one of the people that turned up to that rally, all right, because and here's where I will say openly, I got opposition from the people that we were having the rally with, because I said, no, we need to open it up to all religions. Because one guy said, I've got some contacts with Shia Muslims. Do you want them to come? I said, absolutely. So we had them holding up their signs. Some people, hands off our churches, hands off our schools, hands off our mosques, hands off our kids, hands off our religious freedom. And there was a lot of opposition saying, if you're going to have Muslims there, we're not coming. I said, you know what? Don't come.
Exactly.
I said, and I said to the guy, I said, you want me to be involved in this? I'm sorry, that's the way it is. So if you want to go with them, and we'll call the rally off.
Exactly.
So and he said, no, Dr. Coon, we want you. I said, okay, then these are my terms, right?
Yeah.
So we had the Shia there, and then we also had a journalist, the understudy for someone who knew Alex Smith. Then she spoke to our friend. I won't mention his name. The skunk, right?
Certainly is.
Yeah, so Mr. We'll call him Pepe, right?
Pepe, yeah, sure.
Pepe Le Pew. So Pepe talked about what we were doing.
Yeah.
So she gets on the phone to Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Alex writes a story about our rally, makes it on the front page of the Sydney Morning Herald.
Yes.
Right. Then I get the head of a Shia organisation search me up.
Yes.
We met before the election. He said, I showed him what Labor were doing.
Yeah.
I've got here the current. Okay. Now they tell me it's being revised, but I haven't seen the revised version. So this is the one I believe that's out there, and they tell me it's being rewritten, and that's great because it needed to be. But this Labor Party platform, okay, that's got whole swathes of material on, it's got 22 paragraphs on LGBT place in our democracy, one line on religious freedom. All right, we've got these laws coming in that Labor states are looking to legalise on so-called conversion therapy.
Yes.
All right, and where it's not just gay because it's LGBT.
Yes.
So kids who are gender confused. And in the Queensland version of the bill that eventually got put aside, so it didn't get voted on. That Queensland version of the bill would have had a pastor who gave counselling to a child to say that no, God made you male, you're not female. That could have been punishable by up to 18 months imprisonment.
Wow.
Okay, that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about.
That's insane.
It is.
It's very scary.
And we're not talking about people trying to convert anybody. What I'm talking about is a fundamental human right. If I have same-sex attraction and I don't like it, and I see it conflicts with my beliefs, don't I have the right to get help?
Absolutely.
Do I have the right to get help?
Absolutely.
Okay. According to certain politicians, no, I don't. I have no right to get any help to leave those unwanted, to deal with those unwanted mental preoccupations. All right, and that's not human rights. Okay, that's a police state. So that's another front that I'm fighting. But so I started showing the Muslims this stuff, and they were horrified. So one thing led to another. I met with the National Imams Council. And then we had the election, and we had, religious freedom being an issue. Then we had organised a meeting where we brought Anglican, Catholic, Shia, Sunni, Jew around the table. We then sent a multi-faith letter off to Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese, wanting protection, concerned about religious freedom, wanting protections. To his credit, within a couple of weeks, we had a meeting with Scott Morrison, Prime Minister, where we got the promise for a religious discrimination bill, blah, blah, blah. From there, the alliance has grown. The last meeting we had, which was with two Labor heavyweights, okay, we had more than 30 people from different denominations in the room. The Pentecostals were there, Baptists were there, the Presbyterians, the Catholics, the Maronites, the Chaldeans, the Greek Orthodox, the Assyrians were represented by myself and with someone else. We had Hillsong represented. We had the Sunni, the Shia, the Jews. We had, pretty much everybody. It's
insane. That's awesome.
And I've also got links with the Buddhists and the Hindus.
Yeah.
The Hindu Council of Australia was invited. He was sick, so he couldn't come. Okay, but so we're now in the process of formalising this into a network.
Yes.
A multi-faith network.
Yeah.
Individual organisation, so independent.
Yes.
Okay. But it's a platform where we can all work together. Now,
Yep.
You might say, okay, how did you get these people together, Dr. Con? How did you, without killing each other?
Exactly, yeah.
It was very simple.
Yeah.
And this is important for your listeners to understand. It was very simple. We agreed on, we looked at what we agreed on, and we looked at what we don't agree on.
Yep.
We work with what we agree. So we don't talk about, in the Australian Religious Alliance, or the ARA, we don't talk about the Middle East, like Palestine.
Yep.
And we don't talk about theology.
Yeah, that's a good move.
Okay. Everything else we agree on.
Yeah.
And we found that as long as we stay within the country,
Yeah.
the Jew and the Muslim are happy with each other. And the benefit, I mean, behind the scenes, we were influential in getting the recent lifting of limits for places of worship from 10 to 50. The ARA was involved in that process.
Interesting.
Right?
That's excellent.
There was a case in Victoria of Muslim boys making a Jew kiss the boy's feet. We were involved in making sure that the Imams Council came out strongly against that.
Yeah, that's good.
And so my vision for the ARA, it's not just about religious freedom, it's about showing Australians that religion, it can be a good thing.
Yeah.
And that we can deal with social problems where the faiths can come together.
That's really encouraging.
Yes. And so we're in the process, to reassure your listeners, for example, I'm often accused of, you're working with Muslims, you're going to have Sharia law. Okay. Well, firstly, no Muslim that I'm working with openly wants to bring in Sharia law.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, we already have ceremonial law in some parts of the country under Aboriginal law.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I've made it very clear, and I said this last week. I had a meeting with one of the Premier's advisors, okay, with a Muslim leader, and I said it in front of him and in front of the Premier's advisor. I say, won't mention his name. I said, we don't agree theologically. He knows I don't accept the Quran. Okay, he knows I oppose the Quran. Okay, but I accept his right. To preach his scripture. So, I've said openly that we are not going to be party to anything that protects any ideology from legitimate criticism. So the way I frame it is that myself and the Muslim leaders, I have the right to criticize their worldview. I have the right to criticize Islam and call it a false religion. Okay, as long as I do it respectfully.
Of course.
And I don't make mockery of the Prophet and all that sort of stuff. They have the right to criticize the Trinity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they have the right to say, look, that's a poppycock doctrine.
Yeah.
Jesus wasn't the Son of God.
Yeah, I mean, we've been taking it for 2 millennia. We can take it for another millennia.
Yeah, so they have the right to criticize my worldview.
Exactly,
And the way I summed up why I'm doing this, because one of the Muslims said to me, why are you doing this alliance thing? And I said to him, okay, this is what I want. I said, I want the right to teach my children what I believe. You can teach your children what you believe. And when they are adults, they can debate each other. May the best man win.
Yeah.
Best woman win.
That's right.
Okay. So if I believe I have the truth, it'll stand up to scrutiny.
Yep.
If he believes he has the truth, he's not afraid of it being scrutinized. Why would you be afraid of it being criticized if you believe you have the truth?
Exactly.
It's only when you maybe have some doubts as to whether you have the truth that you want to avoid any criticism.
Exactly.
So the ARA is about protecting the individual,
Yeah.
not the ideology.
That's really brilliant to hear, because it's like, where have the adults been this whole time? And it's like, okay, there they are. All right, let's do something productive. Yes. And you know what, guys, please comment in the comments. Where else have you seen that 30 different, denominations and religions coming together in the same room, telling off a couple of parliamentarians?
Telling them very clearly where we stood, and we were all
unified.
In agreement. We're all unified.
See, I challenge you to guys find that, and this is a tangible way that you can help.
Yeah, and
now, if I don't want to, I don't want this to be like another video you watch on YouTube. There is a clear action you can take in the next couple of weeks. Take it. Otherwise, this will pass by. And I get it. You don't want to put your name to something because you don't want your kids to, you have an income, you have a family, you don't have time or whatever. There will come a day, just as you said, Dr. Con, where your kids will ask you, what were you doing when the tanks rolled in? What were you doing the 10 years before that? Why did things get so bad? This is a tangible thing that you can be doing.
I was looking for this quote from Martin Niemöller, who was a German pastor. And when the Nazis came, he said nothing. And I'll paraphrase, if I can find the exact quote, I will. But he basically said, first they came for the Jews, but I said nothing because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for the socialists, but I said nothing because I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for
the unionists?
The unions or something, and I said nothing because I wasn't one of them. But then when they came to, here it is. First they came for the communists, but I was not a communist, so I did not speak out. Then they came for the socialists and the trade unionists, but I was not one of them, so I did not speak out. Then they came for the Jews, but I was not Jewish, so I did not speak out. And when they came for me, there was no one left to speak out for me.
Exactly.
You see, so the good thing about this Survey Monkey is you don't have to put your name or anything. I mean, all you're doing is responding to a government survey. You put your name, you put an email, and you put a postcode.
Nice, nice and easy.
Do you think that the left are not going to be doing that? Are they going to be worried about putting their name, email, and postcode? Of course not. They're going to be blanketing there.
Yeah.
So
probably doing multiple.
Sorry?
Probably doing multiple.
Maybe so,
if possible.
If possible. So that's I really can't stress enough that the time has come for action. Otherwise,
we deserve to probably lose it all.
Well, if we're going to keep on refusing to play the game, we deserve to lose.
Absolutely. It kind of reminds me of that story in the Bible, I think it was the New Testament, where this big flood comes and this man is drowning, and a small ship comes along and he says, "Do you want me to help you out?" And he says, and it's raining on his head. He says, No, God will save me. And then that ship goes, and then a medium ship comes and he says, "Do you want me to help you out? Save your life?" And he says, No, God will save me. And that ship goes, and then the big cruise ship comes by, and even them he says no to. And then he dies naturally, and he asks God, "Why didn't you save me?" And he's like, "I sent you 3 ships to save you."
Yes.
This is what I'm telling you guys now. Now is the time to act.
Yes.
We can't delay this any longer. We railed, 35,000 of you enjoyed the conversation last week. It's not all talk. This is tangible action, and you can take it right now. We're spoon feeding you. I mean, the link's right below this video. You just have to click it, and I guarantee you it'll only take maybe 3 minutes if you leave no other comments. That's it.
I don't think that story's in the Bible, but it's a really good story.
Well, you can leave my name next to it. I'm pretty certain it is. But you can fact check me on that, guys, and make sure I never forget it.
Fact check Joel. I think you'll find that it's not in the Bible. Yeah. Because I think I know the Bible pretty well.
Yeah.
But listeners, fact check Joel and make sure you send it to him.
Look, Con, it's been a real pleasure speaking up with you. I said it to the guys last week. I really respect people putting themselves out there talking about politics, no matter what their persuasion. But particularly on this issue, my gosh, thank you so much for your time, your effort, the level of research that you go to. I mean, everyone can see it evidently that you do a lot of reading. You're that guy that reads up on all of this stuff and translates it into presentations that are really tangible. Now, a lot of people can follow you on Facebook very soon and a website very soon, which is coming, and I'll make sure I tag you in that.
Yes.
And look, everyone, the best thing you can do to support this message and this channel, not only by, if you do nothing else, do the survey. I don't care if you do anything else, but if you want to go above and beyond, do the survey first, come back, share the video, get everyone you know, tell them to do the survey. Send the survey to your pastors to say, we have to do this week. Your next sermon, at the end of it, you have to do it this week. That's something you can do tangibly, okay? The reason why we rallied so well, and it still wasn't enough, but we rallied so well among the abortion issue, was because we rallied in existing networks that we had, our churches.
Yeah.
That's how you have to do it. The left's very organized. We don't have time to build organizations like they have. We have to use pre-existing organizations. That's how you have to do it. So I'm trusting you guys on this. I've already filled it out. It's really easy. Let's go get them. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, there's my subscribe star as well, and there's also the PayPal as well that you can financially support with, like a lot of people have. Con, did you have anything else to add?
Just one last, maybe one or two things. That meeting that we had with all the religious leaders and the Labor MPs, probably the most heartfelt statement was made by one of the ladies from the Pentecostal denominations, and she was talking about their kids, their youth, who were being smashed as soon as they got to university, and they were, people were hammering them because they were Christians, and she said, it's all well and good you've given gay youth their right. What about our youth? Right? And that's, again, we want to go back to, and she was almost in tears when she was saying it, right? So we don't want special rights. We just want equal rights. So that's the first thing I want to finish with. But the second thing is, you often hear people, like going back to Joel's first, quote from Pericles, you may not have been interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. People say to me, I don't want to get involved in politics because I don't want to be a politician. All right? Well, guess what? I don't want to be a politician either.
Neither do I.
No. But here's the question. Do you want to have a say in who does become a politician? Okay? Because if God-fearing people with our values don't get active in who becomes a politician, then people who don't have our values will become active in determining who becomes a politician, and they will have people elected who don't reflect our values.
Absolutely.
So being politically involved doesn't mean that you have to be a politician. It just means that you have to get in the game.
Yeah.
Okay? Stop saying that standing on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Okay? There's a game being played, and the prize is the future for your families and my families.
Exactly.
Okay? And we've been losing up to now because not enough people have been getting in the game.
Yeah.
Okay? So we didn't talk about this, but another thing that people can do to get in the game is join a political party.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
The left have infiltrated both major parties. So pick a party, even if it's a Labor Party, if you agree with their economics, join the Labor Party.
Yeah.
So we can bring both parties back to the right foundation from the point of view of morals and values.
There are some great Labor MPs.
There are some great Labor
on this
MPs.
issue. I'm gonna shout out Guy Zangari. He's doing
He's
doing a good job on this.
Guy Zangari, both of those MPs, have been really. Tanya Mihalik's another one that's been very receptive on this issue. So on religious freedom. So there are some good Labor MPs. So both parties. So instead of sitting on the sidelines, and we come back to the game where we started. I want to come back to where we started. Instead of sitting on the sidelines and letting the other team win the game because we don't show up, then we need to get back in the game. We need to learn the rules and we need to play the game. And also, there are two teams, and we need to get involved in both teams, and ideally take over both teams again. Take back both teams. because that's what the left have done.
We need a long march of our own.
We need a long march of our own because if you control both teams, then no matter who wins, you have the influence.
That's right.
Okay. So thank you very much, Joel. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for this has been a very short notice podcast, but it's a very, very important podcast, and I just want to thank you very much for coming up tonight and doing this. So
thanks.
No, it's been a pleasure, Con. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, Con. Thanks for that. That was very good. Sorry if I left you.